with this. Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. This is hosted by the Institute for Enterprise Excellence. I'm Mike Steckline, one of the partners in the company. And today we've got a great presentation. Friend and colleague Dan Lent Koop from Sandoval Regional Medical Center. He'll be explaining a little bit about what that is, what he does. He's got a really interesting presentation today on emotional contagion, which I thought was terrific when I first heard it. And he graciously offered to share it with others that might find it of benefit. A little housekeeping. If you could put your phones on mute, that would be great. I can mute it from this side, but if you want to put your phones on mute until we get some time to for some Q&A toward the end, that would be terrific. If I get some background noise, I will pause the presentation and we'll unmute the phones, but we do want this to be a dialogue. You can use the chat function to ask questions, and we'll get those lined up, and also open up the phones for some questions if we've got enough time to do that toward the end. As I said, the webinar is on emotional contagion. It will be recorded for those that are interested in sharing it with others. The link will be made available to others, and also for those that weren't able to participate today. This is a high-level view of the model where we explain to people a sustainability model for enterprise excellence. And you may be familiar with some of the terms, such as people trying to achieve results, using tools to get those results, and then understanding that it's necessary to think about the purpose. So you see that at the top of the organization, the purpose of the organization, why the department is trying to achieve the purpose of the organization, how they're trying to contribute to the purpose of the organization, and how they're using guiding principles for enterprise excellence to do that in the design of systems. We've also recognized that there is another aspect to this, and I think it's strongly connected to what Dan's going to be talking about today. We call it the environment and the relationships, but Dan's topic on emotional contagion is going to be what we're talking about here. So I'm going to forward this slide, turn it over to Dan. Dan, if you have difficulties forwarding, just let me know, and we'll do that thing we do again to share the slides.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Mike, and welcome everybody. I've got colleagues of mine in the room, and for those of you who are connected in through your laptops or your desktops, I just want to say thank you and welcome. As Mike had shared, my name is Dan Lent Koop. I'm the Director of Rehabilitation at the University of New Mexico Sandoval Regional Medical Center. That's located in Albuquerque. A little bit about myself. I'm a native Californian. I've been a physical therapist for more than 20 years, a graduate from the University of Southern California, proud graduate, I should say. Fight on for all of those of you who love football. In my 20 years, I've worked for-profit, I've worked not-for-profit, I've worked in hospital-based environments, I've worked in acute rehab environments and private care settings. I share this only to suggest that I've been in multiple environments where I've seen emotional contagion have opportunity to work. About 4 years ago, I moved my wife and my kids. We've relocated to New Mexico for the opportunity to work in academic medicine, and I can see in academic medicine the principles of emotional contagion have absolute daily application. While we're going to kind of refine today's topic to speak on emotional contagion in your workplace, I think that you'll find that the principles themselves extend into all relationships that you have. Trying to advance the slide.
You should still have the ability, Dan.
I'm trying.
All right.
I apologize.
We'll try it again here.
So Mike, what was working before is no longer working.
All right. Why don't you just say forward slides and I'll handle it.
All right, and I apologize for that. A little bit more about University of New Mexico Sandoval Regional Medical Center. We've been on a lean journey for the better part of 2 years now, and I'm fortunate to be one of the organization's coaches. And I've been working hand in hand with the Institute of Enterprise Excellence and Mike Stocklin and his colleagues as we continue to grow our understanding and practice of the lean management ways. And my hope is that many of you have already begun to experience, albeit in your own lean journey or from other work system management endeavors that you've been encountering over your work experience, that relationships are critical. So success in the workplace can only happen if we have good connections and good communication with our colleagues. And again, as I shared, we're going to talk about work communication. We're going to talk about developing rapport with your colleagues, but you'll ultimately find that these principles are true far and across all relationships. So Mike, if you would please advance to the next one. Perfect. So New Mexico, let's talk a little bit more about New Mexico in general. We commonly refer to ourselves very affectionately as the land of enchantment. And what I want to emphasize, or what I hope that you guys will appreciate with these pictures, is all three of these pictures were taken from the office windows for our rehabilitation center at Sandoval Regional. You can quickly see why we say we have the most therapeutic views in the entire valley. So what you're seeing is the Sandia Mountains, and what I want you to appreciate is the color, because color plays a critical role as I further explain my work environment. Mike, if you would advance to the next slide. These are a bunch of the people that I have the privilege of working with. And what I want you to notice is that I love this photo because it reflects the diversity of New Mexico. New Mexico, more than anywhere else I've ever lived, celebrates cultural diversity, and you'll find a cross-section of this region's special, rich culture as you look into the organization and the faces of these people that I get the privilege of working with. Oh, we're jumping to the next slide. There we go. All right, are we ready? We're there? Okay, so now that you know a little bit more about me and my background and my work setting, we need to establish something right from the beginning. Ultimately, it needs to be assumed that nobody comes to work planning to have a bad day or provide poor service. If this isn't true, we just need to stop this webinar right now and let everybody go run and hide and find a new job, because if we can't establish first that we're all in this to do a better job, then we're not where we need to be. You need to go find somewhere that fosters the opportunity to win each and every day. So again, nobody comes to work planning to have a bad day or provide poor service. Next slide, please, Mike. So hopefully everybody that's still engaged realizes that they're here with the opportunity to improve their own efforts in contributing to the organization in which they work. So before we move on, we first need to set kind of some basic definitions of emotional intelligence, commonly referred to as EQ, and then also from that, emotional contagion. So let's start by drawing a parallel to IQ. Having a developed IQ means that one can study and read on a subject and quickly gain a better understanding of that material. Well, having a developed EQ means that you can quickly study and read the emotions of a situation and gain a better understanding of what's going on. Now, with a developed EQ, you can allow not only a connection to those emotions, but you can use the knowledge of that to redirect the emotions of those that are around them. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of big words and fluff, and for those of you that may have not had any background or experience in emotional intelligence, I've got something fun that we're going to do to hopefully get everybody engaged in understanding in this whole process. So, Mike, if you would now advance to the next one. So when I provide this seminar in a live situation, I get to engage with my audience. They can see my enthusiasm. I can hold them accountable to the practice and the exercise. For my people in the room, I'm going to have them do so. But what I'm asking for each of you that are connected from your remote location, while you might feel funny, this is not like your standard look at graphs and charts on a webinar. I'm going to have you get up out of your chair. You have to have vision of your laptop because you're going to have to see the images on the screen. But in order to get the most out of this webinar and this exercise and ultimately walk away with an understanding of emotional intelligence, I need you to give this buy-in. And as such, I need you to involve yourself in this experiment. So, first, stare at the image on the screen, and you're going to see I call it a passport photo. If you go to have your passport taken, they say, hey, no smiling. I want you just standing there looking at yourself there. And then look at the scale across the bottom. A number 1 means you're extremely sad at this very moment. A number 10 would mean you're extremely happy at this very moment. And 5 is right in the middle. So those of you in this room, do that. Stare at that image, assuming your passport photo. Look at the scale at the bottom. Don't say it out loud. Just assign yourself kind of your current number, okay? I ask you each of your remote locations to do the same. Mike, if you could advance the slide for me. Now, everybody stand up in the chairs you're at. Move your chair away. Give yourself space. This is you guys. Yes, stand up. And each person involved in this webinar, please, I ask you to stand up or you won't get everything out of this that you need to get out of this. Now, I need you to assume your favorite superhero pose. What does that mean? Look at Superman right there. It means square your shoulders. Stand with your chest up. Look positive. Look encouraging. Look confident. And now hold that posture. Imagine you are that superhero. And for the next few minutes, you're going to see images come up on your computer. As you see those images, I want you just to stare at them. When you see words on the screen, I want you to repeat those words in your mind. Don't share them with your neighbor. Stay superhero postured. Repeat the words in your mind. Enjoy the images as we go. And Mike, if you could then just advance each of these slides after a handful of seconds, since you have the con.
I got it.
All right, is everybody ready? Shoulders back, shoulders proud. Superhero posture. Go ahead, Mike. All right, superheroes, what I want you to now do is, again, look at the scale, and I want you to now, again, identify your current state. 1, extreme sadness. 10, extreme happiness. 5, somewhere in the middle. Again, you can write them down. I ask you to just kind of put it in your memory. Just kind of take note of where your needle was, where your needle may have moved, okay? And now it becomes a little more challenging, not just to my people here in the audience with me in this room, but also those of you that are connected from your remote location. Mike, if you'll advance to the next slide for me. Now I need you to assume this posture. So that means you got to move your chair out of the way. I still need you to have vision of your computer screen, but I need you to sit down, just like you see this young lady sitting down. So where you are, sit down on the floor, make some room for yourself, okay? And assume the posture of this young lady. I want you to make a space for yourself. I want you to slouch your shoulders. I want you to begin to feel the weight of your head in your hand. I want you to sink into the floor. I want you to, again, quietly focus yourself. I want you to look at the images as they pop up on the screen, on your computer screen. I want you to read the words silently in your head. And once again, I just want you to just focus. Look at the pictures. Look at the words. Read them silently to yourself. Say nothing out loud. Mike, if you could advance the next slide the same way, please. All right, once again, I would ask that you look at the scale, figure out where you are currently. Once again, 1 being extreme sadness, 10 extreme happiness, and 5 is a neutral spot. Once you've assigned yourself a number, you can go ahead and get back into your desk chairs, your work chairs, or whatever it is. I really do thank you if you involved yourself. If it didn't, shame on you. I hope you still find this as effective as it is for those people that did practice. Now, you don't have to share, but what I want you to begin to think about is, did your needle move? When you had your score at the beginning, your passport photo, and you spent some time looking at the images of happiness and peacefulness and joy and laughter, did your needle move higher? Conversely, if you were looking at images of sadness and despair and frustration, did your needle move lower? So why did the needle move for some of you? Well, why didn't it move for some of you? The answer to this question lies within how well you understand and have developed your own emotional intelligence. Mike, if you would advance to the next slide. So, how many of you laugh at the movies? When you go to a movie, are you the person enjoying the funny humor in a movie? Or are you the only person in the movie theater sitting silent while everybody else is laughing around you? Next slide, please. Or do you allow yourself to cry at movies? Do you connect with a tragic storyline? Have you ever chosen a dramatic movie and theme because you knew that you needed to release some raw emotion of your own? Consider it sad movies. Consider it sad music. It can be cathartic to allow that healing to happen. Mike, the next slide, please. Do you watch a triumphant movie or listen to hyped up hardcore music when you're getting ready for a game or a big event? Do you listen to a warm-up tape as you're working out, getting ready to get your pump on? Whether you do this or whether you've done this before and had no acknowledgement of why you were doing it, you can begin to see that you were trying to tap in to your own emotional intelligence. If you laugh at funny movies, or better yet, choose a funny movie because you want an alternate reality other than your own for a little while, you allow yourself to assume the storyline of somebody else. You allow yourself to engage in the opportunity to be emotional because those around you are also emotional. Or if you've chosen a sad movie because it's cathartic and sometimes it feels good to cry or let it out. Or if you enjoy a movie about overcoming because you need that motivation to go overcome something of your own or perform at your best, then even without a necessary acknowledgement of it or a cognitive notion of it, you already are anticipating and developing your own emotional intelligence. Mike, if I could have the next slide. Your ability to connect with images, the sounds, and the actions around you is physiologic, meaning that it is biology and it's scientific. Some of you have an increased ability to tap into the emotions around you. Others of you may not have as much. But the higher your EQ, the higher your emotional intelligence will allow you to connect more readily. Other people, just by nature, are a little more disconnected. They're a little more guarded, or they're simply less aware of what's going on around them. So let me ask you a question. Why are drill instructors used for new military recruits? What are they drilling? Okay. What are they trying to teach? What are they trying to instruct? Mike, if I could have the next slide. They're trying to teach you to have no reaction, okay? Or I should say a very controlled reaction. They are drilling for the most stressful conditions that one could imagine. Screaming at you, shouting at you, disagreeing with you. There may be alarms going off. There's the notion of extreme chaos. They're trying to create the environment of your worst day. But what's the goal of this instruction? And I would suggest you look in the background of this picture. What is the goal? The goal is that not only would you recognize your ability to control your reactions, but that you would emote calm under pressure, that you would exude confidence under stress, that you will convey to all that are watching that you have it under control and that you could be counted on. That's understanding emotional contagion. You have the ability to appear and react and treat others and give response to those behaviors and emotions around you. They will help you to guide others around you. Mike, if I can have the next slide. This will be my one slide that I use to parallel to healthcare, but I think that you'll find its value in all work environments. This is the military model. In Los Angeles County, the slogan is to protect and to serve. So protect and to serve sounds a lot like all that we do in a healthcare environment, whether you're like my respiratory therapist here in this room, whether you're a nurse, a physician, whether you're in quality like other people in this room, we are there to protect and to serve. We certainly don't want people bringing more uncertainty, worry, and stress to an already stressful environment. And I would argue, much like military model or the police force, and I've now got a whole bunch of my executive team in here. Thank you for arriving. Healthcare setting is no different. We're here to protect and to serve. It's our responsibility to assure that we emote that confidence that we've got it under control and that the situation can only be better by us being involved. Next slide, please, Mike. How about in the service industry? If you've ever eaten at Chick-fil-A, you've seen this emotional contagion in action. Chick-fil-A has its roots. Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A, has made it part of his daily standard work that everybody in his organization responds by, if you've ever been to Chick-fil-A, it's my pleasure. They want to use emotional contagion to promote smiles and their privilege in providing you that service. So that smiling face that says, I'm ready to serve you, creates an environment of patient satisfaction. In the lower right corner, you're going to see Southwest Airlines. They've also done a wonderful job of making it part of their standard work to use humor in what is known to be a very stressful situation. People that are traveling by air are oftentimes extremely uncomfortable, and they're able to kind of improve the environment utilizing emotional contagion through humor. So I would suggest, if any of you are interested in how this works in the service industry, to investigate a little bit more about Chick-fil-A and Southwest Airlines books on both. If you could advance to the next slide, please, Mike. So how about in your own workplace? I'm going to ask that each of you, after this webinar, go test it. As I shared before, this is scientific. This isn't Dan science. This is human science. And if you will approach your coworkers with a smile on your face, a bounce in your step, and greet them with a heartfelt good morning, what do you anticipate you're going to get back? You're going to get back a smile face, somebody with a bounce in their step, and some enthusiasm for their work on that day. But try it the other direction. How about if you approach that same group, but you're stomping around, complaining about your boss or your coworkers, your lack of sleep, your car trouble? What do you anticipate you're going to get back? You're going to get back that same negativity. So if you want to see your opportunity to make a change in your own workplace utilizing emotional contagion, start to recognize today that when you go put something out, you're very likely going to get that same thing back in. Mike, if you could advance the next slide. How about in your home environment? So I'm a very blessed daddy of four, as I shared earlier. When I come home from work, my two youngest, my two little girls, come running to the garage door to give me a big hug, and they say, I'm so glad that you're home. But what if I met their enthusiasm with fatigue of the day or the burden of the day, and I hurried them off so that I could get to whatever it was that was weighing on my mind? I think you could begin to see that the first thing that would happen was their enthusiasm would dissolve, and eventually it would just go away. That same kind of enthusiasm is your opportunity to drive what you want to see in your workplace. Mike, if you could advance to the next slide, please. So this is one of the few slides where I'm going to take the moment to read to you this quote by Sigal Barsaid. Research on emotional contagion underscores that we use multiple means to gain information about others' emotional states with stunning rapidity: facial, vocal, and postural cues. Then why are people so oblivious to the importance of mimicry and synchrony in social encounters? Now, first, let me share a little bit about Sigal Barsaid. She is an organizational psychologist and a professor at the University of Pennsylvania Wharton School of Business, and she has dedicated her studies to the study of biology as it pertains to emotional contagion. This quote simply says that we are gaining better understanding of emotional intelligence. We are gaining an understanding that people come out somewhat hardwired about their own openness to emotional intelligence. But even as we gain an understanding, very few people, not just in the workplace, but just very few people in general, take the opportunity to try to develop their emotional intelligence and go be that person in the workplace that makes a difference. Believe it or not, it is truly contagious. And again, if you think about the notion, it only takes one bad apple to spoil the bunch, right? It just takes one spark to get a fire going. If you can advance to the next slide. So being armed with this awareness can create more productive relationships, teams, departments, and corporate cultures. If you recognize that with this understanding, you can build or you can tear down, you can feed or you can starve, you can strengthen relationships or cause division, you can approach your relationships with a purpose and a renewed focus. Next slide. If you choose to go away from this webinar with this knowledge and do nothing about it, just like Homer Simpson, your emotional intelligence is just like a muscle. It can be developed with purposeful effort, and that's what a lot of this at the Institute for Enterprise Excellence, this is what we're talking about. If you give it deliberate effort, you can improve not only your own emotional intelligence, but the emotional environment in your workplace and bring with it new success. But it can also wither and atrophy without attention. So I ask you, next slide if you wouldn't mind, Mike. Who are the people in your work organization that haven't developed EQ, whether they realize it or not? I'll tell you who these people are. These are the spark plugs in your work area. They energize and they bring light and energy to a situation. They're the champions on your departments that seem just to be a little more enthusiastic than most others. And they're sought out by others because they just have that thing that makes people have more confidence, more focus, more energy, and more desire. Now I ask you, what would your work life or your home life or your team life, if you're on a sports team, look like if there were more people with developed EQ on it? What if you were the spark plug in your workplace? How much more effective and efficient and confident could you be? I bet that you could find that with improved employee engagement, I bet you would find that if you did so, you would find that there's improved employee engagement and ultimately better satisfaction in your workplace. Next slide, please. So where can I go from here? How can I develop my own emotional intelligence? So the previous slide had a few books. We'll go back and look at those if you're interested. But some people just want to sit back and hear more about it. Here's a professional and somebody who most of you are probably very familiar with. Daniel Goleman, the author of Emotional Intelligence, has a wonderful TED Talk called Why Aren't We More Compassionate? I've included the YouTube link here. Use your smartphone, take a quick picture of that, go to it at a later time. Sorry, I can't hear you. Is that you, Mike?
No, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. That was someone else. But I just muted everyone except you and I.
Okay. Go to that YouTube, spend 20 minutes to listen to Daniel Goleman, and I think you'll have even a deeper understanding of emotional intelligence and emotional contagion. Last slide for me, if you wouldn't mind, Mike. Now, when I give talks, whether I give it at work or whether I give some other seminar, I like to say, if you remember nothing else, I try to leave you with something easy to remember. So for those of you that love the movie Elf and Buddy the Elf, this is emotional contagion. I just like smiling. Smiling is my favorite. So if you remember nothing else from this presentation, go smile at somebody. And quickly you're going to find out what you put into the world, you're going to get back. I thank you for your time. I hope you found this beneficial. I hope you truly did participate in the exercise, even from your remote location. I'd like to open the opportunity for any questions and answers. I think Mike will unmute the phones now, and I'm more than ready to answer anything you guys might have.
Yeah, Dan, and that was the peanut gallery. That's terrific. And I have unmuted the phones if anybody does want to ask some questions. I think you'll probably understand why I was excited about Dan making this presentation. I think it's something that's very important that we don't know enough about, and I always need a quick way to give people a reference. And I know Dan would love to travel all over and explain this to people face to face, but I thought this would be the next best thing. So I'm going to pause for a bit and see if there are questions. I thought of a question, but if no one else has a question, I'm just going to pause for a bit. Okay, Dan, here's my question. So we talked about building new habits and how people can change their habits by starting some new practices and new habits. And so you've given us one, like go smile at someone. Can you think of other habits that you could build into your routine that would help you to either be that spark plug or to develop your own emotional intelligence so you could better apply it?
Well, and I think that's an excellent question. I think that it may be different for everybody, but if we first take a step back and just realize that this is neuroscience. This isn't something that I've developed. It's neuroscience, and science simply means that this is biology. We are all wired to make connections to those around us. Now, we have opportunity to drive that in either direction, up or down. It starts with a daily decision, just like if you decide one day you want to become a marathon runner, you don't go out and run 26.2 miles. You start out slow. So I would think you need to give yourself little mental reminders or written reminders, albeit that in the form of, a journal or a sticky note on your dashboard, something that just simply says, smile or go make a difference. And before you step into your workplace, if you go in with the notion that I'm going to go in and I'm going to try to be that positive emotion in my workspace, again, you're going to get back what you put out. So I think, yes, it's as easy as smiling. I know that sounds silly, but for others, you might say, well, I'm already a pretty happy person. Then go try to find the least happy person in your work group, pat them on the back, ask how they're doing, and truly engage. It's listening is an active role. You can't just ask somebody how they're doing and hope all you're going to hear is fine and move on, but truly invest in that person and start to listen and create an opportunity to develop that environment and that relationship. Again, I think it's different for each and every person. Some people are more comfortable being more externally emotive than others, but certainly everybody that has an interest in developing their own emotional intelligence can have an increased awareness of emotional contagion, and it's not hard. You can walk out of here and go to Subway to get some lunch and smile at the person behind the counter and say, thank you very much. And you've just made that person's day. They're going to go home feeling just a little bit better. It's easy stuff, guys. It's easy stuff.
Thanks, Dan. I think that's great advice. I appreciate that. Well, as there are no more questions from the audience, I appreciate your time. Just a few slides to wrap up. We will be moving this presentation over to the recordings. So you can see on the image on the screen, that's a snapshot of Dan doing a huddle. Some of my colleagues are listening to Dan and talking about that. And so the recording from that is going to be moved over to the left, or to the right rather. And you can go to our website and see what's coming up as far as webinars. And you can also go to the links on the right and see what's been recorded. So everyone that's participated in today's webinar and everyone that's on our distribution list will get a chance to benefit from the great advice that Dan offered today. Speaking of next, we will be talking about a research methodology that we've been employing and using with some organizations at IEX, and it is a way to help organizations understand their current state without necessarily needing to ask for outside assessors to come in and do that. And it's a way to make sense of how this is making sense. And if you're curious about this, you can go to our website and click on the research link and learn a little bit about the instrument and the tool. And also, here's the link to the information for next month's webinar, which is going to be August the 19th. And you don't need to write that down. I'll just be sending a recording out, and you'll get the images as well. And everyone that's on this recording will get a reminder and an invitation that if they would like to attend that presentation as well. And all these are being recorded. If you're interested in strategy deployment, September 30th, Didier Rubino from Health East Care System is going to talk about his advice on strategy deployment at the September 30th webinar. And again, there's a link there that you can get that information. And I've got two other conversations going about future webinars, one for November and one for December. The November one may be something on mindfulness for both individuals and for teams. And it's going to be based on some research that one of my colleagues did at Providence Healthcare Organization in California. And then another topic, I had a request from someone about case studies around how to better think systemically, how to think using systems thinking, and case studies around what happens when we do that well, or even case studies or examples when we do that poorly. So we're lining those up for the rest of the year. So I thank everyone for their time today, and I want to go back again and thank my friend and colleague Dan for taking the time to put this together, and appreciate that. I hope everyone has a great day, and if you're traveling, travel safe. Thanks again.
Thanks, Mike.